Hi everyone, as part of our lead up to Club Champs, I'm quite excited to have Mark Lumley here with us. Mark has done something exceptional that all golfers sort of aspire to, so I thought we'll touch into that round of golf, some of his other achievements. He has won the Club Champs 3 times, 2004, 2012 and lastly in 2020. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and how's the state of your game?
Well, look, I mean, since especially since that 62, I've got married, had kids, so makes golf a little bit harder, a little bit less time to practice. But funnily enough, I always seem to be playing, well, especially the last couple of years, not so great leading up to Club Champs, but I would say it's okay.
Good. Well, now that you've touched on it, let's talk about this course record. I think guys only dream of hosting course records. Why don't you walk us through that round? One thing that stood out to me on the scorecard is that you parred the first 2 par 5s. So that must have been an exceptional 16 holes. How fresh are those memories?
Yeah, so I mean, a round like that, it's quite easy to remember every shot, I think. I'll go back to the actual range session before it started. I was hitting the ball terribly, to be honest. I hit 2 buckets of balls, and it was one of those days where you had, your expectations were quite low just because of how I was hitting the ball. I hit a few better ones towards the end, and then I started on the first tee and hooked it left into the trees. Hacked it out, hit a terrible wedge shot to about 40 foot, hit a terrible putt to about 8 foot, and then managed to hit a good 8-footer for par. So I think that was crucial. If I'd missed that putt, I probably would have shot 75 or even worse. So I think that was the turning point. But yeah, then after that I scraped a par on 2, and then I sunk 2 very long putts on 3 and 4, at least I think 30 or 40 foot. And then after that, everything just seemed to click, and I hit the ball good. And it's one of those days. I think people who've played golf for a while will know that you have days when you hit the ball good, you have days where you putt well, but very seldom does it all just happen together. And that was, luckily I chose a good day to do it, and that was one of those days.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that you're now a parent of 2. I think golf is quite similar to the game of life. Do you think the children have helped dealing with a bit of adversity out on the course?
Yeah, so I get over my bad rounds, if you want to call it that. I don't play that much tournament golf anymore, but I get over my bad rounds quite quickly these days. I don't take it as seriously. When I was a youngster, it used to take me a couple of days to get over a bad round, to be honest. I was quite intense, and I'm still quite competitive. I can just hide it a bit better these days. But yeah, certainly it has helped. It's made it a little bit more difficult because you often arrive at golf with less sleep. But for sure, it puts things into perspective.
So with kids, I now understand as well, the mornings are a little bit more rushed. How do you now build that into a pre-shot routine or into a warm-up session, or how do you get your mind right? What can you share with us how you prep for a tournament round?
So my usual Saturday, I get laughed at because my usual Saturday I walk down with a cup of coffee about 2 minutes before I'm about to tee off. And that's mainly because I'm squeezing every little bit of time into making sure my kids are okay before I leave. But generally speaking, if I've got a bit of time to put into it, I generally hit some balls first. And it's quite important to me that the last few shots I hit quite well. So even if it's hitting 2 or 3 extra balls, or even if you're halfway through your bucket and you're hitting it quite well, that I sometimes just stop there, just mentally, and then also just going and hitting a couple of 5-foot putts is the important thing to me. Watching the ball go in the hole, and then a couple long ones as well, just to get the pace. So those are the main things that I would do.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions I love asking good players is, what's in your golf bag?
So I think I was watching Colin speak before me, so we can go to the 7-wood. I tell everyone to get a 7-wood. I know Scott Watson got one, and he hits it even better than I think both of us hit it. I've seen him make many eagles with it. So that's one thing that I think would stick out. And then the other thing that would stick out is I've got a lot of wedges. So Recently, I went to Uli and got all my wedges bent and checked all the distances. So I've got 5 wedges. I've got a 50 bent to a 49. I've got a 52, a 56, a 60, and then your normal stock pitching wedge, which is 46. So I think that's probably a little bit different to everybody. But I thought about it for a while, and I literally with my 7 would never hit a 4-iron. So it made sense to me that if I can close the gapping on my wedges, I don't have to hit half shots. I can hit a lot of full shots. And often when we're hitting a full shot and we know the distance, that does help.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because you are quite long off the tee as well. So I'm sure you're hitting a lot of chip shots.
Long
and
for
pitch
my
shots.
size, but not long.
Obviously, you've been a golfer for many years. Who got you involved in the game? What does the game mean to you? Are you going to pass it on to your children?
So my first memories of golf were actually at the Bobby Fivey driving range, which is now Monte Casino. That's where I used to hit balls, and I went with my dad. I've actually still got my first club that I started with, which is quite nice. And I think my dad used to just take me on the odd weekend. I've always played a lot of sport growing up. But just on the odd weekend, and I think the bug just bit. For no specific reason. I wasn't pushed. I was able to choose the sports that I wanted to play. And then Bryanston was a big part of that. My mom made me a member here when I was I think about 10.
Sure.
And there was a nice bunch of juniors. We had a great junior league team, and I think I just had a good experience growing up. And then from my son's side of things, I'm not a parent that is absolutely intent on making my son great at golf. If he is, that's fantastic. I'd love him to play because I just think it's a great game for a father and son to play together. The level is not that important, but more the enjoyability of it. And he's got a set of clubs. We've got a little putting green in our back garden. And he just plays when he wants to. He goes through 2 weeks when he's not interested, and then 2 weeks when he is interested. So we'll see.
That's
we'll
awesome.
just see how it goes.
I think my little guy's more interested at the Energiades at the range.
100%. So when we go to the driving range, the first thing he asks is, "Can I get an Energiade?" And then if I say yes, then he's in.
That's awesome. So while I've got you here now, obviously not to give away any golden nuggets, you're obviously competing against a lot of youngsters. Can you share any advice with some of our fellow competitors who are either playing their first championships, hoping to win their divisions, or hoping to dethrone you?
So I think I'm getting to the point now where I'm up against it with the youngsters, especially guys like Jaden and even Colin who perhaps play a little bit more than I do. But from my side, when it gets to about a month before, I just try work on the things that I feel are weak in my game. So whether it be chipping, putting, long game, I think most people hit probably too many balls, and they focus on that and less so on the short game. So if you're hitting the ball good, then the putting is really where you're going to win your division. If you look at pro tournaments. I've heard stats of guys being the best ball strikers at Augusta and coming 50th just because their putting is poor. But if you see the guy who putts the best, he's probably in and around the lead. So I would say don't underestimate the power of putting.
I think that's some great advice. Hopefully the guys are working on their putting around the greens. And in terms of your game, do you work with anyone? I think how often do you go for lessons?
I go for lessons intermittently, I would say. It's when I feel like I'm not playing well, then I feel like getting help from someone is a good thing to do. And in general, you sometimes think that you're doing something wrong, but it's actually something else. And sometimes it can be quite simple, like setup or like grip or like alignment. And I think a lot of people underestimate those sorts of things that you can actually get right before you even hit the ball. So my from a lesson point of view, it's just when I feel like I'm playing poorly.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time and all the best for the championship. Hopefully your game all comes together nicely and you can compete with the youngsters.
Yeah, thanks Darren. I'll give it a go, and thanks for having me.